The year is 2090. The streets are clean. The air is filtered. And no one is sick. But almost no one is truly human anymore. Citizens walk past each other with glowing eyes. Their thoughts connected to the hive net, a global AI consciousness that filters emotions and blocks dissent. Those who refuse upgrades live underground, disconnected and hunted for being biological liabilities. A child watches old videos of her grandfather, a man who aged, forgot things, and laughed freely without biometric optimization. She wonders what it meant to feel something without an algorithm correcting it. In a world where perfection is mandatory, freedom has become the most dangerous idea.
Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
What an intro.
That's an intro.
Well, I'm telling you, that is potentially our future.
Well, we're talking about transhumanism. So what I did was I kind of came together with an interesting, just true definition of what transhumanism is. Transhumanism is a philosophical and scientific movement that advocates for using advanced technologies, particularly in medicine, genetics, robotics, artificial intelligence, to enhance human physical and cognitive abilities, ultimately aiming to transcend the natural limitations of the human body and mind. At its core, transhumanism explores the idea that humanity can and should evolve beyond its current biological state through the integration of technology with biology, creating humans who are healthier, stronger, smarter, and potentially even immortal.
And I believe that is the goal for a lot of transhumanists, is the idea of immortality.
Yeah.
I really do. Now, whether we get there or not, I don't know.
Well, there's some dark sides to this too, because there's a lot of people who believe that only the ultra elite will be benefiting from this, even in your statement. People like me, I'm going to be living underground fighting.
Right.
Because I'm not going to be able to afford all that. Who can afford it and who can do it?
Well, that's the two schools of thought. I mean, because there's some people who there's like a couple camps when it comes to this stuff, and of course you got, like anything, we got the political left, we got the political right, and a lot of people think transhumanism is rooted in leftists, kind of the left side of thinking. Believe it or not, it actually has its origins more on the right side. Sort of like the genetic Superman. A lot of this, I would venture to say some of this comes from Friedrich Nietzsche. This was kind of talked about with the Third Reich, with Adolf Hitler and the Aryan race and building of the Superman. I think I've read some stuff that there was some genetic experimentation during those years to try to create super soldiers. So yes, I do believe that that there is a lot of downside to this, as well as a lot of good side. I guess the idea of, I've talked about it multiple times. I've always felt like the future of medicine, the idea that they can grow replacement organs in a bank, so to speak. So when one organ, falters or gets diseased or whatever the case may be, they can plug a new one in and you're rocking and rolling. So, theoretically, how long that could extend someone's life if in essence, I can basically replace pretty much all my organs and return me to a state of when I was 15 years old. The thought of it is quite incredible.
Well, it's been going on for a long time. Okay, even in Greek mythology, there was talks of this kind of stuff. The story of Icarus, the man reaching for the
That's
sky.
right. Yep.
Okay, but then Prometheus also, he was, bringing, different things, fire, technology, to help man's age-old desire to become greater and stronger and better and immortal. But a lot of this stuff has seen some recent literature on it too, and I'd like to give a couple examples. Francis Bacon in 1605 came out with The Advancement of Learning. But one that's going to stick out in everybody's head, maybe more than anything. Anybody remember Mary Shelley?
Yes, Frankenstein.
Yep. Okay, that, if you think about that, that's one of the earliest cautionary tales of using science to play God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to remove God from the equation because, and showing both the potential and the perils of altering human nature. So this has been going on for a while. People have been thinking about this for a really long time, and now the technologies are starting to catch up with people's thoughts and dreams. But I kind of disagree with you in a little bit. You went kind of the left and right thing. I don't believe it's left and right. I think it's ultra elite versus the have-nots. And I think when you look at people like Bill Gates, who want to kill off half of the population, leave only enough to serve the ultra elite, who are now going to be able to possess this technology.
Right.
That's the direction I think it's going. I think this whole left and right thing is a smokescreen to the ultra elite and what they really want to do. And all you got to do is look at people like Bill Gates and some of these other people who are trying to change us genetically, which guess what? That's transhumanism.
Well, I mean, I know Elon Musk has talked about Neuralink. He's an advocate of brain chips.
People also think that he's done some genetic stuff with his children. There's
Really?
speculation, yeah.
I hadn't heard that one.
There's a large number of boys that he has as opposed to girls, and I think there's also some stuff that people say that the whole like genetic engineering designer baby type stuff,
Kind of like what my intro was like.
Right. I think a lot of his children, are IVF, where you can also do you can
manipulate, use CRISPR technology,
you can pick certain embryos and certain things. I mean, now that's all speculation, that could be false, but people are like, if anybody would probably do. Well, I
mean, he's an avowed transhumanist. I mean, he's admitted that, and I think that's part of the reason. I mean, the push for Mars, and I think part of that is enhancing the human condition where it could survive in the somewhat hostile environment of the Martian atmosphere. So I kind of understand maybe the backdrop of what he's trying to get at in doing that. But, I saw that I saw some things that a lot of money has been now pumped into Project Stargate, which I found interesting, that, a project that was implemented in the 70s is found new life. And, it'd be interesting to see, I think with the advances in AI, and I think you're going to see a lot of this happening now. And I think why you're hearing this transhumanism stuff that's come up a lot lately is I personally think they are a lot further along with AI.
Yeah.
That tells me right there that behind the scenes that the infrastructure is kind of in place, so to speak.
Well, we discussed this on a past episode. Most people believe AI has only been around for 5 to 10 years. We discussed it. It's actually been around since the 60s in some form. We just have not had access to it. But what they do is they baby feed us little things to kind of gear us up for what's really happening. And then, it's already there, great. It's already there, great. And that's what they're doing with AI. It's been around a long time. Yeah. They baby fed us with movies, with books, with all kind of stuff, with AI actually on your own computer now.
You think of just, technology in general. I mean, we don't really know if it's good or bad for us because, I mean, think about something as simple as the television.
Mm-hmm.
What did that turn a lot of people into?
A babysitter.
Couch potatoes.
Yep.
I mean, you're thinking just this box that delivers pictures and shows to you. You would think it would be quite innocent, but unfortunately, it had a lot of downside to it.
But it started something, and I have a possible future guest that I've been talking to, and I'll kind of lead into this a little bit. This lady has many documented certificates and diplomas, but her thing is like with the TV, but the cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay. When a new mother has a baby and she's holding that baby, before the cell phone, what happened? She looked at the baby and there was a bonding.
Correct.
Now what's happening?
Mom is looking at the phone.
She's looking at the phone.
And the baby not looking at the baby.
Not looking at the baby. So that bonding is not there. So what are we doing to our children just with that one little thing?
Well, I would think people need to put the phone down a little bit.
Well, I think a lot of it is we're in a world now where it's like I said before, you're the most important commodity right now is your attention.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And that's that's what social media and all these entertainment companies bank on. Is they bank on you just always needing more, always watching more, always being stuck on it. That's how they're able to get money is through advertising to you. So it's all just capitalizing.
But also, if you're not raising their kids, they are raising your kids.
Oh, they don't care about raising the kids at
well,
all.
They're not raising the kids. They're raising your kids. They're putting stuff in their head and letting it grow. That's usually the parent's job.
Right. So, I don't think they care about that. All they care about is money, and that's the big thing.
I think they have cared about it from Rockefeller back in 1905.
I'm talking about tech companies and things like that. But
what do the kids do now? They're on the phone
that's
watching stuff that.
That's what I'm saying.
They want them to watch.
On corporate meetings, all they're caring about is capitalizing attention. I don't care who it is.
Yeah,
I don't care at what cost it is. I don't care at what age it is. It's all about how do we get more eyes on our product for longer. And I think that's what they care about. So you're right. Even if that woman is not raising her child and are watching YouTube videos or watching social media stuff, I think it's still,
Well, back in the TV time, the TV became the babysitter.
Right.
Well, now the phone and the pad is the babysitter.
Right.
So the babysitter basically raises the kid. So now they're watching all this, and now with the internet, they have complete access to whatever they want.
Well, I was kind of reading a little bit on the history of transhumanism, and it's just kind of for our listeners. It was first popularized by the English biologist and philosopher Julian Huxley in his 1957 essay of the same name. Huxley held that it was now possible for social institutions to supplant human evolution. So there is a deep-seated idea that within the transhumanist community that the human condition is not finished. It's the idea that being human is not good enough.
Right.
And it's finding ways that we're basically we're constantly evolving, and it's this is the next step. And we should just accept it and roll with it and just accept that one day we will not look the way we look now.
Right.
And within that community, that's kind of the thinking. So they believe that, hey, it's just, what is it? We just have to accept that, within a certain time, whether it's 100 years from now, 200 years from now, however long it takes, that the marriage of tech and biology is inevitable.
Well, he grew up in an interesting time. He was born in the late 1800s and died, I think, in 75? I think he died. He saw so much. You kind of wonder somebody during that time watching the people land on the moon, but then the first car and everything. That was a big fear of people back then of what technology was going to do.
I mean, you look at just what people look at how science fiction movies were made and what was the view of the future. from their perspective.
The Jetsons.
Exactly. How humans would interact with.
Right now, we're just supposed to be able to push a button and the little robot maid
Yeah,
comes and cleans
exactly.
everything.
And I mean, and maybe not in so many ways, not in an identical way, but in so many ways, we do have a lot of that. We do have some things that are like, again, not one-to-one, but like, you got Roombas now that just on an app or whatever.
You got
like,
lawnmowers now that can cut the grass. I want one so bad, right? A robot.
So it's like, so again, we don't have flying cars, but like again, I do think that
we do.
We have some, I mean, very robust air travel that is, I mean, highly regulated and very safe, and it's incredible. But
yeah, well, really in the 80s, a lot of this stuff really took off. There was a lot of groups, organizations that were formed during this time that advocated for human life extension, cryonics, futurism, basically, which is the study of current trends in order to anticipate and plan for and influence their possible outcomes. In 86, American engineer K. Eric Drexler published Engines of Creation, an exploration of the future applications of nanotechnology and molecular manufacturing.
I think a lot of this, too, is coming out because we had a discussion on this in our quantum computing episode. Like, there was a lot of talks of it a handful of years ago, but obviously I think it was like the government at the time had said, like, there's just no, like, viable way that we can, like, sustainably do this, like, with the power we have and all that kind of stuff. And you're seeing it pop up now because their capability, like the framework, like you said, is there. And I feel like it's the same sort of thing for this kind of stuff. Is like I think that the idea has been around for a while, but
yeah,
but I think the things that are allowing it to make it happen now are kind of more feasible or efficient, which is now bringing this back into the conversation.
Yes, in the 90s, extropianism. Did y'all see that word when y'all were kind of looking at this stuff? It's a libertarian doctrine that advocates overcoming human limitations through technology. It came to the forefront of the transhumanist movement. The British philosopher Max Moore founded the Extropy Institute early in the decade with American philosopher and lawyer Tom Bell, who used the term entropy to designate a concept oppositional to entropy, highlighted the movement's individualistic, proactive approach to expanding human potential. So, I mean, this stuff is, I'm telling you, some of this stuff, I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff, and coming from and I'm going to go in a direction here that probably people are not thinking. But, we all consider ourselves Christians. Mm-hmm. And we all kind of understand kind of how mankind was formed and man's place in the cosmos and, ultimately our ultimate destination. What is the one thing that could basically make us forsake that? I never thought about this until I started. Not an apple.
It was an apple.
Well, I mean, we can kind of go into that. That's some interesting topics there of the interpretation of the apple. But how about if we abandon our humanity? And we're not human anymore. What does that make us? It's kind of scary.
Hold on. I want to go here. Let me touch on something there. And Ian said it before, and my wife has said it before. What did COVID do with the masks? It started taking away the humanity of people, because now you're not looking at somebody's face. Now you're just kind of looking at somebody's eyes. Right. It started taking the humanity away. What if that was kind of a pretest about removing the humanity?
Have you guys ever watched a show called Ghost in the Shell?
Yes.
It's a very, very popular classic anime from the 90s, and there's a whole bunch of different like versions of it for those who don't know. And this is a future scenario where people can heavily augment their body with prosthetics and things like that. And it starts off simple where you can get, it looks human-like, looks like a regular arm, but it's actually a prosthetic arm, and all these different internals. And the kind of the head-scratching part of the show deals with cyber brains and how you can have your personality, you can be fully robotic, but you can have all the memories and personality of yourself. But then there starts to get this question of like, but is it really you though? Or is it a copy of you? And then of course they start to deal with this kind of the ethical
dilemmas
right.
there.
And then that's where what the name Ghost in the Shell means is like, is there a spirit? Is there something else? Is there something that makes you that is not there whenever we make this shell, whenever we make this robot or whatever, that kind of stuff?
That's another movie that there's another movie.
Hold on. I want to go there. Bicentennial Man.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the opposite.
Yeah,
because now one of Robin Williams' greatest roles
ever. That was a great
show. But
made you think.
He was an android who now wanted those human traits.
Right.
And he did everything he could have over how long did he say he lived? Like 200 years? And I was going to do this. I have some paperwork on this. I'm kind of glad we went this. It took me like 3 days to remember what the damn movie was.
Yeah.
But I had, when I found it, I was like, this would be a great conversation because can android or robot have a soul? And that's what he wanted.
Kind of goes back to the time that we had that little discussion, and Ian got all upset, because we were cloning and stuff like that.
Well, because again, I think the upsetness for that was like a different thing with cloning and with, of course, the freedom of people and that kind of thing. I think for AI and I think for robots, my belief, and again, I'm always willing to be wrong. Whenever I state anything, I'm not saying this is. I am 100%. I don't think that a robot or AI or anything can produce a soul. I think that they have a good job of puppeting like they do, but I think when you really boil it down and when you really peel back the surface, there's a lot of intricacies inside humans, and there's a lot of things that we don't fully understand that makes humans what they are. And I think that AI, and I think that robots will all be manufactured, and it's all very evident once you start to really peel back the surface and look deep inside of it. None of it is actually all of its own. It has all had a human touch. It has all been created and artificially made. All these language models that we have it's not doing it on its own. It's all had human intervention. It all has large database sets of information that is all brought from humans, and it's all. That's what I believe. I think that in the future, it is going to be harder for us to distinguish if these robots have a soul or quote unquote feeling,
self-awareness,
or feeling things. Because I think they're going to do a really good job of pretending they do, but I don't think it's going to be real.
But you'll have groups defending them.
Oh, 100%.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
You have groups now that are doing it. And again, once you start to like I said, once you look a little bit deeper inside of it, you're like, oh, this is all fabricated.
Well, kind of movie that really touched on that a lot that everybody's probably seen.
Lucy?
No, well, Lucy is one. That's just the expanding of the human mind. It was iRobot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was the movie with Will Smith.
Yeah.
And
which gave me the opening for the AI episode.
Yeah, you go down to what is being human. At what point? How many modifications do I make to myself that I am no longer a human being?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that line? And I think that's where the transhumanists, where the ethical dilemmas come in. Is, if I have an artificial brain and the only thing that's left of me human-wise, I got some blood vessels and a heart, or maybe I have something else, but maybe I've replaced pretty much every. Am I still a human being? I was born human.
Well, as a Christian, the blood is very important. The blood of Christ, the blood. Yeah. Well, we've been talking about stuff in the future, but we're close. I think the real reason for this episode is real close. I have a couple of things here, modern transhumanism in action. And the biggest one, and it touches on the brain, is the first person to be implanted with a Neuralink was in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And this person can now control things using brain power, like the mouse and the screen and stuff. And it's a brain-computer interfaces is basically what it is. And the global BCI market is projected to reach $6 billion by 2030.
Right.
And already around 30,000 people have had some form of BCI, invasive or non-invasive, implanted for medical uses like epilepsy monitoring or ALS communication aids. That's crazy. But then you went on the second one. Sorry, I pointed in the wrong direction.
That's all good. Yeah.
Prosthetics and bionics.
Mm-hmm.
That's the next big
Oh,
one.
yeah.
That is, remember the $6 million man?
Yep.
He was the $6 million man, and they did in today's dollars, it would be like $45 million.
Yeah, I thought I thought one time I saw a figure of 60 million.
Yeah.
To basically create the enhancements that he had.
Yeah, we've had a number of people. Hugh Herr, a W amputee, developed MIT's Biocaltronics lab prosthetics legs in response to nerve signals for lifelike movement. Y'all love this. It's called the Luke arm. Named after Luke Skywalker, is a mind control prosthetic developed by DARPA and approved by the FDA.
Good old DARPA. We need to do an episode on DARPA.
Over 2 million amputees in the U.S. alone, with 185,000 new amputees each year. That's from the Amputee Coalition. The bionics market now, not amputee, the bionics market is projected to exceed $10 billion globally by 2027.
Yeah, it's going to keep going up. Well, I'm going to tell you, I mean, right now, all the big wigs are very much into this right now. Larry Page, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. You know, Page launched Calico Life Sciences, Calico Labs. It's a company dedicated to extending the human lifespan through advanced technologies. In 2022, Bezos and other backers invested $3 billion in Altos Labs, a biotech company seeking to reverse aging and disease. Of course, you all know Musk found SpaceX in 2002, hoping to establish human colonies on the moon and Mars, and launched Neuralink in 2016 to develop implantable brain chips. In 2022, the brain chip company Synchron announced that it had successfully implanted a chip in the brain of an ALS patient in the United States. The chip was designed to enable severely paralyzed patients to operate digital forms of communication with their thoughts. So, I mean, you know, we're close. I mean, I could definitely see within the next 50 to 75 years where, I mean, you think that's about the equivalent time from about World War II to where we're at now. You think of all the developments that occurred. So, I mean, if you extrapolate that and we do kind of the same jump over the next 75 years, I mean, now you're getting into that time frame of 2080, 2090. You know, I could easily see parents gene editing their children.
It's happening now.
Yeah. But even on a more, you know, more accessible, more common.
Yeah.
And then how does that translate? I mean, how does that change our world?
Yeah. That
you have now people that are, for all intents and purposes, potentially living to 120, 150 years old, maybe even longer. How does that change the whole dynamics of our planet?
Well, that's why, Ding Dong, what's his name? I just said him earlier. Bill Gates wants to kill half the people on the planet through vaccinations because they know as people start to live longer, the population's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you go ahead and kill off, and this is not my words, I don't want anybody gone. Bill Gates and his group of people want half the people on the planet gone so that they can live longer.
Well, I think that's where you're getting to this push for colonies on other worlds. That okay, there's two ways you can look at it. If we're going to develop technologies and we're going to enable people to live a whole lot longer, which is going to lead to they would say overpopulation. I have my thoughts on that, but regardless, then there's more people than we can ship off to go to other planets to set up colonies there.
Of, like you said, maybe instead of the left and the right, maybe that's the two avenues. One, colonize Mars and the moon, etc., and then one, kill off a bunch of people. Maybe that's going to be the two different directions that the world is going to have to choose.
And we also don't know, I think, long term either. So I think we're talking about all these hypotheticals of like, what if everyone's able to live longer? But like, what if there's some sort of limitation that like you can, mentally and internally you can probably, but like at a certain point, like what, like there.
We don't know what. That's the problem with tech. That's what I'm saying. Just like I mentioned earlier about the advent of the television.
Yeah.
No one ever thought that would lead to basically leading to people being couch potatoes, and the health degradation that occurred when people stopped going outside and being in the sun and being deficient in vitamin D and all the health issues that have come, fast food technology that we created fast food. No one thought that the health benefits that we're now realizing that has now been advocated by RFK Jr. and that whole that whole line of thinking that we need to change how we've put all these processes in place, not realizing there were consequences. And I think it's the same here. We don't know what this might lead to.
Right.
We can speculate, but we're not going to probably be here in 75 years. Mm-hmm. We don't know what our grandkids and great grandkids will, as time goes on, what they will be, what their world will look like.
Well, it's going to be different. You're the Gen Xer. When you had to pull a note all-nighter at school, what did you do? You drank a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now what they're doing is they're using bioenhanced pills and brain chips.
Yeah.
What is it? It's a nootropics. It's new kind of smart drugs, like modafinil. Students and executives are using this for cognitive boosts. So instead of burning the midnight oil, we're just going to pop a drug. We're going to have an implant that we put in, and we can just stay up all night and do it.
Well, I don't think they really truly understand, what's the purpose of sleep, because it's, I know it's restorative, but I think there's still some unknowns when it comes to that. And I think if you can develop technologies where someone doesn't need to sleep, just think how that changes.
I think that it's one of those things where like that all sounds beautiful and romantic, but like I feel like there's always going to be that human element that comes back to kick you in the butt.
Oh, I agree. Ian, I agree with you.
They've proven if you don't sleep, you die. It's proven if you don't dream, you die.
Did y'all see did y'all read the study? Speaking of that, and kind of dovetail a little bit on that. Did y'all see the study they did in, I believe it was Russia? They kept somebody up.
Yes.
It's pretty dark.
Yes.
It's very dark.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Of what happens to the human being. They basically go stark raving mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, check that out if everybody's listening to this. It's kind of Google sleep study in Russia, and it's quite disturbing.
But like I think that there's limitations. I think that again, it's all. I feel like it's the same thing in like the vape world. Everyone was talking about how beautiful and how romantic it was, and now that we are like 10 years out from all like the popularity of it all, like. There's a whole new issue of problems because of it. And it's the same sort of thing with that. I think brain chips and drugs can probably keep you up for long, and it makes you feel good in the moment, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's not
health-wise. It completely destroys you over time.
And I think the same. I think everything in moderation. And especially with some of this stuff too. I feel like we've talked about augmentations and prosthetics and things for people with certain debilitating illnesses or conditions or whatever. And I totally I'm cool with that. I think if there's someone that has some sort of limitation or has lost an arm or has some sort of motor function issue, like I think this is the kind of technology that's like we should be focusing on and making that happen. And I think that in the future, I think that there are probably more applications for things like that, and I think that's wonderful. It gets to a point where we start to like change things and augment things for the sake of it, just cause. And then I think again, there comes a point where you reach a threshold of again, like the ship of Theseus, where once you start augmenting and changing everything inside of yourself, are you still yourself now at that point?
Well, that goes back, as I'm saying. At what point do
Yeah.
you lose your humanity? And if you lose your humanity, then what are you?
Well, I mean, we used to dream about walking on the moon. Now we're trying to upload our minds onto the cloud. Have we already gone too far?
Well, I mean, I mean, there is talk out there of marrying consciousness to machines. If somehow I can download my brain into a machine, then in essence, have I achieved immortality?
Right. And I think whenever I go from what my gut feeling is, this is not based on anything except for just my feeling and my world experience and my spiritual experience. I think if you were to upload your consciousness onto the whatever
that might be,
whatever you want to call it, I think it will just be information on a hard drive.
It might be.
I don't think that your soul, your spirit, that what makes you alive and feel will be superimposed on that machine. I think all your data will be there, and there may even be an AI that can play a convincing role. But I think your memories, and there'll be a nice voice of you that can play them all back for people. It will be for the people that are here. But I think what makes you intrinsically you, the life force that makes you feel, your soul, all that stuff, I don't think is something that could be superimposed on a machine. I think they can pretend it, but I think in the grand scheme of things, when that all happens, all of us will look at that and say, "Oh, it's grandma." But in the real, once you peel back the surface, it's not really you.
I kind of did y'all watch the movie? It came out several years ago. It was a remake, I believe it was H.G. Wells' A Time Machine.
Yeah.
And remember that scene where he's been transported far in the future.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the remnants of that librarian that's behind the glass.
I didn't see the new one, so
you need to check it out. But it's interesting. That's how I can see memories of an individual. Think about this. You go to we're going to go see grandma or grandpa, and you go to a graveyard, and you show up, and it picks it up, and all of a sudden an image of grandma or grandpa pops up, and they start talking to you from their memories.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see some crazy stuff like that.
I'm a big Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. And in the and in the lore of it, they have these things called holocrons. And some of the Jedi masters from way long time ago uploaded all their training and knowledge on a certain facet, and uploaded it to this kind of like special fancy computer type device. And so whenever you would access it, a hologram pops up, and it's that person from eons ago, and they can hold a conversation with you to a certain degree about this thing. And I feel like that's where my feelings are coming from. Is like the consciousness of that individual isn't there, but all their life and all their knowledge, all the experiences is there, and there's a depiction of them, and you're like, wow, I can learn this craft from this master that has had firsthand experience and has devoted all his time to doing this. I think that's what it's going to be. By my personal feeling, I think there's something intrinsically spiritual and something that we are created beings that cannot be recreated by humans, no matter how hard we try. I don't think we're going to be able to do that. We can play God, we can pretend like we're God, but I think there gets to a point, there's a threshold where we keep butting up against it, where we're not going to be quite there.
Well, I mean,
I think.
No, remember the Babylonians tried that once and got bitch slapped down the next week. You know?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, as I'm saying, we're saying that, but for people who are strictly materialist,
Right,
Mhm.
right.
okay,
You're right.
that really have no faith that there is the way we understand life after death,
Yeah.
that are they view everything as consciousness,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you know, the laws of I guess would be laws of thermodynamics.
Right.
You know, energy is
Ones and
neither
zeros,
created
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
destroyed, and also where does it go?
Well, it never disappears. It just
It's
transforms into something else.
So,
What I did was I kind of went into this. We're a generational show. Obviously, I'm the boomer. We have a Gen X and a millennial. And I kind of I started researching some surveys and some stuff like that. A boomer, me, was born in 46 to 64. What were the main concerns of transhumanism in this group? The number one main concern in my age group was, are we playing God?
Mhm.
Number two, fear of losing control to AI or becoming less human, and a complete distrust in biotech corporations and data privacy. You know,
Yeah.
only 28% of boomers support the idea of brain chips to enhance memory or performance. Gen X, 65 to 80. Number one, widening inequity. Will enhancements only be for the rich? Two, tech addiction or over surveillance. And three, philosophical. What does it mean to be me if I enhance or replace my brain? You know, and 46% of Gen Xers say they would consider life extension technologies if proven safe and affordable.
Yeah.
Millennials, 81 to 96. Wellness through wearables, supplements, and smart tech. Using tech to overcome mental challenges, AI therapy, apps like Wobot. Interest in personal data sovereignty and ethical AI use. 62% of millennials support using gene editing to eliminate disease before birth.
Yeah.
And the last one I looked at was Gen Z. Their things were, see physical and digital identity as fluid, interested in neural enhancements and body augmentation as self-expression, and worry less about ethics and care more about access. 73% of Gen Z believe technology will eventually merge humans and machines in a meaningful way in their lifetime.
Wow.
wow.
I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. The gradient of acceptance.
Yeah.
Interesting. But that also that tracks for a lot of things, I feel like.
A couple of the things that were kind of universal in this was the loss of human identity.
Yeah.
Are we redefining what it means to be human? And if you replace 60% of your body or brain, are you still you?
Well,
Inequality and accessibility.
right.
Will only the wealthy afford it? And would this create a genetic upper class or super intelligent elite?
Oh, it will.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you
Oh,
it
yeah.
will.
Absolutely it
I
will.
don't think that's really far fetched. That's not really. I mean, you can just look at how the world works now, and the
yeah.
rich and the powerful are going to have access to things that the poor and the middle class probably are not going to have.
64% of Americans worry that human enhancement will widen the gap between rich and poor.
Yeah.
No, it will. Because look, rich people are going to always look for ways to extend their life. They're going to look for ways to, to stay around a lot longer.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Tech overreach and surveillance. Who owns your brain data from an implant? Could governments or corporations manipulate enhanced individuals?
100%.
And then religious and moral questions are, is life extension ethical? And are we disrupting the natural cycle of life, death, and rebirth?
Mm.
The soul was once as eternal. Now the hard drive is.
Maybe.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. We've talked about it. Look at the statistics right now of people that are basically rejecting, religion, rejecting the idea of spirituality, that, atheism, or agnosticism. If we have an increasing percentage of people that are in essence, view death as the end, then of course they're going to sit there and try to do their best to try to extend our current life. I mean, that's just the way it is. And unfortunately, that doesn't surprise me with our population basically rejecting traditional forms of Christianity, and really, for all that matter, for really any interest in the supernatural, so to speak, or the supernatural is something that they create. That we create. We create our own reality, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you run across those people. There are some people that are a bit concerned. There are some people that have kind of raised the warning flag on this. There was a journal article called Foreign Policy in 2004, and an American political theorist, Francis Fukuyama, called transhumanism the world's most dangerous idea, warning that biotechnology's offering might come at a frightful moral cost. And I could see that, especially for human rights.
Yeah.
Kind of the opening, what happens with people who refuse to upgrade, what becomes of them. And look, I'm going to tell you, if parents start basically enhancing their children, and those children go out and get the best jobs and make the most money and become the most successful, and that success turns into real tangible things, then guess what's going to happen? Other parents are going to want to do it also, because they're going to want to give their children just as much chance as anybody else. And I can see where that's going. I can tell that's going to take you down a road that you don't realize.
You're going to have the ultra elite who have all the best facilities to do it, but then you're going to have this underground railroad system of fallen doctors and scientists and engineers who are trying to do it to help the lesser people.
Sort of. What was that? Another movie kind of. There's several movies that have kind of touched on this. Was it Oblivion? Or was it? What's the one with Matt Damon? Was that Oblivion?
No, that was Matt Damon. Oblivion was Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. What's the other one with Matt Damon? The rich one, the
Elysium.
Elysium. Yeah, touches on that a little bit, where he upgraded himself. He had a chip in his brain. He did different things to him and stuff like that. So, our culture is, I think, there. I'm a believer that the culture tells you where you're at, what's going on in the minds of people, and if this is coming out, this is becoming more mainstream, then I think the population is there. I just think the numbers are there to do what they have to do to enhance the human condition. I don't think they're worried about the human cost. I don't think people are thinking about that. I really don't. Because as I said, once people see other people benefiting from it, and it becomes more integrated into the mainstream kind of consciousness of people are going to do it. It's like people now, I want to send my kid to that college.
Yeah.
Because they're sending their kid to that college, and I want to give my kid all the chances that they get and stuff like that. So, all that just going to be that inherent human desire rooted in love.
Yeah.
It's rooted in love because I want my child to succeed and not be struggling in life. I think it's going to open a lot of doors that we're not thinking of right now. I really do, because I'm a firm believer that I think people are going to do it. I just do, because as soon as it becomes easy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, will there be groups of people that reject? And yes, they will be.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of like people.
The
It's like people who don't believe in vaccines.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's just the idea that I don't believe vaccines matter. The vast majority of the population got vaccine. Then there's a small percentage of who fought that, right, and refused to do it,
right,
and they suffered whatever consequences, of, getting their children in school, and
whatever it is,
whatever the case may be.
The same thing will probably happen here.
Yep.
There'll be purists that'll be like, I'm not having any augmentation.
I'm not having any upgrade.
I'm a pure-blooded human. Yeah,
that's right.
And then, of course, there'll probably be some sort of issues along the way that could be fixed.
Well, my question is, okay, then what are you going to do? What sort of jobs? And how's that going to work?
The discrimination.
Why would I hire you? Because I can hire this guy. He can outperform me 10 times.
Yeah.
He don't even have to sleep.
Yeah. Well, what is it? What would the term be? You're biologically discriminatory.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I
only hire augments. Thank you.
That's the inadvertent world that you're creating by doing this.
Yeah,
because it's going to happen.
That's awesome. That's crazy. It's crazy to think about that because it's very true. And again, we've also discussed this as well, that, again, the fact that we're having this conversation is the fact that probably the framework is kind of building out for this to be a thing. So in the next 20 years, what does this conversation look like,
Mm-hmm.
So, because 20 years ago, it was a very different landscape than it is now.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's a future with a big question mark.
Yeah. What an interesting discussion.
Right.
Anything else you want to touch on? Or before we
Well, I had some statistics because I brought up the bicentennial.
Yeah, okay.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but
okay.
I need to watch it again.
That was a great movie.
It was good.
But, Andrew begins his life, so to speak, as an android designed to serve. Over 200 years, he upgrades himself, organ by organ. And all he had was a desire for mortality.
Mm.
He wanted to become human. So was Andrew's, and this is a question for y'all, since y'all have seen the movie, and I know Jason's seen it a little bit more recently maybe. Was Andrew's final act wasn't an upgrade, it was a sacrifice. What if being human isn't about perfection, but about limitations?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, what makes you human? Because the idea of just existing on and on and on, it's sort of like, well, not transhuman in scope here, but I mean, did y'all?
It's transhuman in reverse, so to speak.
Did y'all see the movie Tuck Everlasting? It was a cute movie.
I've heard of it.
It basically, it's a family that discover a spring of water. They drink it. It makes them immortal. It basically freezes their aging where they're at. And of course, the story goes on with they meet this little girl. It's sometime in the late 1800s. She develops a relationship with the family, and eventually they have a discussion. She goes, being human gives you meaning.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, we are like rocks. We never change.
Wow.
And you think about that for a moment. You become like rocks. You're frozen in time.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you would be, what makes you human? And so of course, there's always the fear of death, the unknown. And I think that we don't want to be rocks.
Oh, yeah.
Because the idea, if you had unlimited years, think about it, how that affects you psychologically.
Yeah.
That I will live thousands of years. What motivation do you have to do anything?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I think that
I mean, that's what drives us for greatness. This drives the human condition to create, to do things, because I want to leave a legacy behind.
a lot
right?
of fantasy media has talked about that, and vampires or other like immortal type beings of like having like there's a moment where they disconnect from other human beings because they're like, I'm gonna outlive them. Their lifespan is but just a drop in the bucket for me, and like why
Right.
should I get invested in their
Exactly.
comings and goings?
How do you navigate that?
Yeah.
It's it's so funny that and it's not funny, but it was a great movie. Was the movie The Green Mile?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Remember at the end,
Mm.
Tom Hanks's character,
Yeah.
the old man, he's sitting around telling the old lady at the end, I'm 108 years old or whatever it was, and he goes, I will watch you die.
Mm.
And of course, the show progresses and shows her she died, and he's going to her funeral, and he's now at the end. He's laying in bed, and he goes, if he can make a mouse
Yeah.
live so long, how much longer do I have? So this psychology of immortality, the idea of living on and on, I wouldn't know what to do if I knew I was going to live for 5,000 years.
Right.
I mean,
It's-
think
it's-
about
yeah, it's
that.
crazy.
I mean, you would become an observer
Mm-hmm.
of human life.
Yeah.
You couldn't get close to anybody.
It's
You
cr-
couldn't do
and-
anything. Eventually, your family would go away, and even people who remotely might know you,
Yeah. Just to
would
put
would
things,
become some freak.
to put things in perspective,
After a while.
if like a generation of people that like comes and goes every 20 to 40 years or whatever, imagine how many of those generations like you would have in 5,000 years.
Yeah,
Again, if a human lifespan is like 80-ish years, how many human lifetimes that is, and it's just crazy that
yeah. I mean, of course, there's all kind of legends of people who were,
Yeah.
cursed, and they were
Right.
cursed. Like there was the wandering Jew.
Yeah.
Was one. The Roman centurion who stabbed Christ.
Right.
Supposedly they were
Or the first vampire being Judas.
that or Cain.
Mhm.
Even really before Judas be Cain.
Well, they say they think in the stories Judas because of the blood.
Yeah, that was I went to a movie to watch a show on called The Last Supper,
Yeah.
and it's I thought they really did a really good job of playing off Peter and Judas in that movie. But if you get a chance, go check it out. But I just think the idea of at what point then do you cease become human,
Yeah.
that you become more machine.
Mhm.
Maybe that point is when you have no purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe the soul and purpose, and having a soul gives us purpose.
Right.
Maybe when you lose your sense of purpose, you no longer become human.
Could be. That's a good
I
point.
also think the beauty of humanity lies in the imperfection of it all.
Yes.
And I think once you get to a certain point where you try and make things too perfect, that I think it loses that humanity.
You know, it's kind of funny you said that. And if I may, I know everybody gets sick about me talking about Miranda and stuff, but the other day I told her, I said, we're not perfect, but we're perfectly together.
Yeah,
That's right.
I agree. There's
Yeah.
a lot.
And
We all have to make our niche in this
Yeah.
world, and we have X amount of years to do it.
And I think that's it too. Like the beauty is that you don't have forever. Things come and go.
Mhm.
Life happens, and that's part of the cycle.
Yeah.
We all have the same human experience,
Yeah.
the same emotions, the same
it would-
feelings.
It would be that would be bizarre to be able to sit back and to watch humanity
I think it would come to
evolve over
Yeah.
time and see what I do believe that lifespans will get longer.
Yeah.
I think right now we got some issues because I've seen some lifespans actually drop.
Mhm.
right.
But I think kind of once we get beyond a certain point, I think you'll see lifespans get a lot longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do believe that some things will come about with this. But I've said all along, I think the genie's out of the bottle. I think it's coming, and I think this, people were with, this administration that came in, a lot of transhumanists that are pushing this. So, I think it's here to stay.
Yeah,
I really
I do too.
Well, that was what a great discussion.
Yes.
For if anybody out there who wants to let us know your thoughts and feelings on this, we have a couple different ways you can do that. We have the email address, getoffendedtogether. Let me enunciate better, at gmail.com. We also have comment sections on a couple of different platforms you can reach out to us on as well. We have the website,
retrospectpodcast.com.
right? But anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Every generation leaves a legacy. Ours might be the first to merge biology with circuitry, to edit our very existence. But in our race toward the future, let's remember, legacy isn't just about innovation, it's about intention. What future are we building, and who are we building it for? Transhumanism raises big questions about life, death, ethics, faith, and identity. And while we may not have all the answers today, the conversation must continue. So we leave you with this. The door to the future is open. Will you walk through it, or will you hold it open for something even better? You're the best. Peace.